little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of shadows.
Hello, I'm Runia, aka Media Adaptation, and welcome back to Moderation on Maze for a Game. And it's the start of our 31 days of Halloween. We'll do a video each day based on your suggestions. And it's time once again for us to talk about the myths and urban legends from around the world. And today we were asked to talk about one from the Middle East this time, which is an area we haven't covered before. I mean, off the top of your head, can you name one that isn't a djinn? And since we were given such a broad topic, we chose one at random today. So this is the tale of the El Naddaha. Most stories begin with a pair of men walking close to the Nile late one night. But one of them hears a faint whisper on the breeze. Ever so slightly, but it was unmistakably his name. He looks around confused, but sees no one, and then foolishly calls out to it. But the moment his words pass his lips, his fate is sealed. His body tenses up and goes catatonic, and then slowly makes its way to her at the water's edge. From here, the story diverges from telling to telling. In some, his friend is powerless to stop his companion from walking into the arms of a being disguised as a beautiful woman, who then takes him below the water's surface. In other tellings, his friend does successfully get him back to his senses, and the two run from the false illusion. But the El Naddaha will have its victim. If you break the spell on someone, then you yourself will be her next target. It may not be in the same night, but be ever wary if you ever hear your name called. El Naddaha means the whisper or the caller, depending on your translation. Many sources call her the Siren of the Nile, which is a bit misleading as she's a completely different creature type. Sirens are normally Greek. She's actually much closer to a djinn, an elemental spirit, and one that can change her form at will. They also have another neat trick. If they're unable to find a traveler late at night, they will instead sing a different song. They can target those who live in homes by the water, but it works a bit differently. Like before, the victim will hear them being called, not necessarily by their name this time, and they don't need to respond. They will feel a compulsion to leave their house and seek out the voice. But the spell isn't perfect like the last one. They still have some wits about them, and can fight the urge. But each day it grows stronger, and by the fourth night it reaches its peak. They are driven to the brink of madness. But by some miracle, if they're able to survive the night, then the spell is broken. Stories like this were told, one, for telling people not to walk too close to the river at night, and secondly, to explain why people would suddenly lose control of their senses, whether it be from a sickness or disease. An outside source was much easier to explain in the ancient world. But as for appearances in film, there was a self-titled movie in 1975, but sadly that was more of an allegory of a seducer, and not the monster itself. In 2011, there was an Egyptian show called Doors of Fear, where a reporter would deal with a monster of the week, a la X-Files. But sadly, the series itself wasn't translated, and I wasn't able to find the episode in question. But in 2017, a short was made by the Wingrave channel, and deals with a man who drowns himself in alcohol to forget. He once had a lovely wife, and after an argument, he was left alone. And when the memories flare up, he goes back to the bottle. But then enters our djinn, in the form of a woman wrapped in red cloth and chains. Technically not traditional, but when you get to choose whatever form you want, you get to make the rules. He hears the call, and is almost driven to madness, as he then finds himself in front of her. Instead of his name, she calls him by something else. Murderer. He flashes back to the argument, where in a drunken rage he accidentally beats her to death. He relives that same moment, breaking his hand open on the pavement. But then, something different happens. She releases him from her spell, and then gives him a choice to end his suffering. He takes the offer, and the chains wrap around him as well. Which means he does get punished for his crime, but also slightly redeemed since he did so willingly. It's also an interesting take on the story, where she's normally just depicted as a random killer, but here she has a purpose, and is noble in her actions. But that about does it for this video. We got several requests for other myths and urban legends to talk about next Friday. Each day of the week brings us a different type of video, so I hope to see you in the next one. Anyway, I'm Runya, inviting you to join us again for the next night.
Weep not, poor children, for life is this way, murdering beauty and passion. Hush now, dear children.